Hey everybody! You thought we were done with Streets of New Capenna, but you were wrong. We've got our top 10 steaming hot right out of the oven. I'm joined today by Hamhocks42 and HearSayTTV. How are you guys doing today?
What's going on,
Oh man,
baby?
so excited! I love this set, and boiling it down to just 10 cards is tough, but I think we got some spicy ones.
Yeah, I think we got some really good some good cards here.
Hmm.
Definitely like a couple of my favorites, a couple of your favorites. I mean, it's like one big pizza.
Absolutely, we're all adding a little bit to
Exactly.
it. It's coming together to make a delightful dish. Yeah,
Calling this the top 10 slices.
Oh yeah, there we go.
absolutely.
So yeah, you can find the links to all of Hamhocks and Hearsay's content in the description down below, same as mine. Hollywoodpizza here, as usual. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and break it down. The first thing that we're actually gonna do is we're gonna go by what we think are our top common for each one of us, our top uncommon, and then we're gonna go jump right into what we think is like the actual top 10 for what we think of the set in terms of constructed. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it right now. Our first card that we're going to talk about here is Strangle. So we have one red sorcery. This card deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. I think this card's great. Efficient removal. Essentially, anyone that reads this card is going to immediately think of Lightning Bolt. But, you know, it is at sorcery speed and it doesn't hit players, so that's like a huge difference. I think that's going to be useful though. It's going to be great for kind of picking off some early threats at just 1 mana, and then even like later to mid to late game, you're going to be able to potentially shoot down a planeswalker like a wandering one, anything like that. I just think it's like a really solid common overall, and you're definitely going to
Yeah, the
expect to see
card
it a
the card
lot.
is the card is dope. I mean, like when
Hmm.
it's not instant speed, but you got to think of like frostbite, right? Was
Yeah,
Yep.
frostbite. Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Was 2 damage, but it was 3 if you had all your snow permanents. Yes, that was at instant speed, but this does 3 damage at sorcery speed with 1 red mana. I still think that that's decent, like removal, especially in like those Rakdos sack lists and any kind of like this can be an option in Naya and stuff like that. That's like that you just need a piece of removal. You don't want to quite fertile grass. You're be low on life and stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and in Historic, when Strixhaven came out, Lightning Bolt was in the Mystical Archive. Those Mystical Archives went straight into Historic, which is theoretically a higher power format than Standard, and Wizards banned it immediately. They
yeah,
didn't
like
let Lightning Bolt
before
survive.
release, they're like, oh, by the way,
Yeah,
you're
like
not getting this card.
yeah, exactly. By the way, there are a handful of cards in the Mystical Archive, Lightning Bolt being one of them, that are going to be on the client, but no, you can't play them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, great. Like, so if you opened it in Strixhaven Limited, good for you. That was the one format where you can play it.
Yeah, what was it?
But
It was 10 of them, right? There was 10 cards in Mystical. There was like Swords of Plowshares, Lightning Bolt,
there were a couple
Dark
that didn't even.
Ritual.
Yeah, I think did Demonic Tutor make the anyway? Yeah, I think Demonic Tutor was on that list as well. But regardless, that sent a message to the entire community saying you will not get Lightning Bolt on Arena.
Yeah.
Like you won't do it. Like that was the situation where they could have given it to us, and they're like, it's not gonna happen. So like that printing into Standard, never gonna happen. I think it's
Yeah.
very safe to say, in the foreseeable future, I should say, we're not gonna be seeing Lightning Bolt in Standard. However, Strangle, I think, is the closest we're gonna get. It
Yeah,
does a lot of the same
for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah, a lot of the
Mhm.
same stuff that we want out of Lightning Bolt. The sorcery speed is a big limitation, but being able to
But this
drop,
is just
it's
exactly.
so good. I mean, it's just so efficient.
Oh
I
yeah.
love this. I love this card. I think it's great.
Oh
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it
So
hits Planeswalker, so that's all that really
Hmm.
that's
yeah,
that
that's
really
actually like
matters.
the biggest part about it. I think.
You can kill Lulz, you can kill Sorens, and like what can't you kill when at 3? Because usually you're minusing your Planeswalker when it comes out first.
Oh, you can't. Well, yeah, you can't hit Kaido because it phases out. But other than that, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
fuck
yeah.
Kaido, fuck that card.
So our next common
Yeah.
here is actually Hearsay's pick. We have Masked Bandits. It's actually part of a cycle. So Hearsay's going to pick the whole cycle essentially here. Masked Bandits, 3 colorless, black, red, green, raccoon, rogue, vigilance, menace, 5/5. You can pay 2 colorless to exile it from your hand, and then target land gains tap, add a black, red, or green to your mana pool, and then you can cast this card from exile. You may cast it for as long as it remains exiled. Yeah, it's just a good cycle. Helps fix your colors. Later in the game, you can just play the creature side. I mean, pretty solid, I'd say.
I love this, honestly. I really do love that this is like a fixer. This is a basically like this is for the budget people. That's what this card is for. It's for the people like that don't really have the wild cards for the triumphs, or not triumphs, but the tri-lands that are coming out. This is a very budget way of saying, okay, you're gonna be able to fix your mana here. So here's two, spend two, and your land can now tap for the colors that it basically provides. I really, really love these, like the whole cycle. I really do. And especially the Bandits is relevant. Yes, it's at 6 mana, but I mean, you can cast it when you have nothing else on board. Like that was like one of the reasons why Companion was so busted, was because you always had the Companion. So this here is like you always have a creature in exile. So when you have nothing else on board, you can still cast this creature. And the stats are very relevant. It's a Vigilant Menace 5/5. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think spending 2 mana to fix your colors in the early game can be a big deal if you're in a 3, 4, or 5 color deck. So I definitely appreciate that. And I think that's a fair point that you bring up, the idea that it is a card later. And like I think they're especially great in Limited. I think they're going to be really relevant in Pauper as well. I think that's going to open up some some multicolored decks in that format that maybe would be a lot trickier to pull off. And that's really cool. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think the design on these cards is sweet. Like, I don't know how much standard play they're going to see unless you are on a budget, like you're saying. If you're strapped for wild cards, the fact that these are commons, yeah, that's legit.
Could end up like making 4-color decks more of a reality, depending on, if you end up playing like 1 or 2 of them, just because you can play it no matter what later in the game off of the mana that it's providing from itself, which is quite an interesting thing. I think Limited specifically, this is going to do some crazy things, just because I feel like 4-color is going to be a lot easier,
Well, and also think about in Limited specifically, because mana bases in Limited are hard. They're going to be a little easier in this set, but they need to be. And this set is a huge part of that, because if you're running, I mean, with Mass Bandits specifically, I mean, if you're running, well, with any of these, if you're running a 2-color deck and you want to add Mass Bandits to your list, you don't have to add any other lands of the splash color to your deck, because it will fix the mana for you that you can use to cast it later. Like, I think that's rad.
I think this specific card, the Mass Bandits, is really good because of the stats and the text on it is really relevant. The other
it's one of the better ones.
It's definitely one of the better ones. But like just this ability, I think is huge. I know you guys don't see it in Constructed, but I feel like I'm gonna see it in Constructed.
Maybe I would love to see it in Constructed. I would love to see these get love in Constructed. Yeah.
All right, so our next card here is actually Hamhawk's pick. This one's actually really awesome too. Kind of a push common. We have Jewel Thief, 2 colorless and a green for a Cat Rogue 3/3. Vigilance Trample. When this card enters a battlefield, you create a treasure token. So essentially this card, quote unquote, costs 2 mana. Yeah, stats are great. It makes a treasure token. Trample, Vigilance. What do you guys think?
Like, when I look at this card, like, it is a statement about where we've come. I mean, think about if this card was in Ixalan, that would have been a rare and a chase one at that. Like, without a doubt. Like, and the fact that it's just a common here, like, that's mind-blowing. Like, I think this card is going to see play. It might even see some Constructed play. Like, I do believe this card is the real deal. Yeah, it's going to fill out. It's going to fill out 3-drop slots in a lot of aggressive decks that want to ramp into big 5-drops or big 6-drops. Like, and in Limited, this thing is going to be a house. Like, this is a must-answer threat on the 3-drop slot at a common. Like,
it's just really good. And even like in our current, like the current Wanderer meta is what I call it, because you see the Wandering Emperor everywhere. Vigilance matters. And I know, like, in a couple of my decks, I run not Tyler's Tracker. What am I thinking?
The Briarbridge Tracker?
Briarbridge Tracker.
Yeah.
Which is like really, really good. That's a 4/3 body if you have a token and it's vigilant. This one says it's Vigilance, Trample, and it's gonna ramp you. Like, ooh, pretty good.
Pretty good. Well, and I've seen people making that comparison, because Briarbridge Tracker is a 4/3 with Vigilance that gives you that clue token, but if you crack the clue token and you don't have another token lying around it, it downgrades. But, what's better, a 4/3 with a clue token or a 3/3 Vigilance Trample, or they both have Vigilance, but, a 3/3 that gives you a treasure token? Like, I don't know. I think they both have their place. They're both really solid. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna trade well. It attacks well. It blocks well. Like it's just good. Everything about it is just really good.
Yeah.
It's always like, why is it always 3 mana that those like those sneaky good cards are always at 3 mana?
that's a great point, because actually I find myself like over the last couple of days I've been trying to brew some new decks with new Capenna, because obviously I want to make content for the stream when we get access to the cards, and I've been working on some of that stuff, and I've noticed like 3 and 4 mana are stacked. It's like,
Yeah.
what do I put in those? Like, making cuts at those slots is especially hard right now, because there's some phenomenal stuff there, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I this card's just solid overall, solid stats, solid mana cost. I'm gonna be excited for it. Definitely gonna try it out in all kinds of like aggro variants, and maybe even, who knows, if there's like a new kind of treasure deck, considering that a lot of the cards in this set themselves make treasures. So
Treasures are pushed
yeah,
so hard.
treasures are pushed a
they
little
are.
bit, just a little
Yep.
bit. Okay.
just, hey, you want treasures? You get treasures. I feel like Oprah's on this show.
Yeah, 100%.
You
Get
get
that
a treasure,
loot.
and you'll get a treasure.
Gotta get that loot, baby.
Gotta
Gotta
get that
that shit
loot.
up.
Give me the loot.
Give me the loot. So our next card, we're actually going to start going into the uncommons here. Our next card, we're going to talk about my pick here, Nimble Larcenist. A white, a blue, black, flying bird rogue 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from it, and you exile that card. This card's great. We've actually seen... I know sometimes it's not always the best to be like, oh, we've seen this in the past, but I think that this is still strong today. A Sin Collector type effect where you get to play a body on the board. It actually has like okay stats, 3 mana, 2 power, flying. That's decent. And the fact that you're able to rip apart your opponent's hand, taking like either like an Asika's Chariot, any kind of instant sorcery, maybe like Expressive Iteration, anything like that could end up being troublesome. I mean, you can take a Deluge and it's just exile, right? No flashback for you. I think this card's just solid overall. I kind of expected to get played, but I think these days this is more of like a sideboard type of effect, but I still think it's going to be a solid contender in constructed Magic.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's definitely gonna. It has its place somewhere. I can't picture where it would have its place, but the fact that it just like hand knowledge is king. If you know what your opponent's doing ahead of what they're trying to do, that's a lot of value. And then you're exiling it. The fact that you're exiling the card that you take is huge, because there's a lot of graveyard decks and there's a lot of recursion decks. Like we have Orzhov, that's just an absolute pain to deal with, because yeah, sure, you discarded it, sure, all right, awesome, and then they blood in the snow. It's like, oh, now Lulth's back, sweet, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, the ability to pick off so many like amazing board wipes with this. Like, I can see a case for this in like an Esper Tempo deck. I can also see it being useful in mid-range decks, because the ability to, Pete, like you're saying, the ability to mess with your opponent's hand and know what's coming and play around it is huge. That cannot be, like, that can't be overstated how valuable that is. And the fact that you can straight up remove a big nasty threat, and the fact that it hits artifacts, instants, and sorceries, I mean, those are relevant types. Like, do I want it to be able to hit creatures? Yeah, sure. But is that realistic? Not really. Like, that would be a little too pushed, I think.
Nowadays, there's some artifact creatures, right?
But,
yeah.
Well, artifact creatures, yeah, you could mess with artifact creatures. That's true.
Yeah, I think it's a strong card. I can't agree with you more on that. The fact that like it really does hit like very specific card types, but they're all card types that you almost always want to hit against anything, especially like we've talked about before, where standard specifically is just a value grind fest, where you're just trying to at least have like the last few cards more than your opponent, or the better battlefield for the longest time, pretty much, or whatever you can hold up. Like, and the Nimble here, the Larcenist, definitely like helps kind of get that little bit of like attrition going, where you can kind of just start to take your opponent's best cards. On top of that, it's a threat. A 2/1 flyer isn't anything to really scoff at. I mean, let's be honest, any unchecked threat's going to get there, and the fact that it has evasion on top of that, I think, is like fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. You're going up against mono white aggro. You got a 4 mana board wipe. You got a Wrath of God. You got a Crippling Fear, whatever it may be. And you're like, okay, as long as it gets to my board wipe, I'm going to be fine. And then they play an Elite Spellbinder.
Yep.
Well, okay, so much for that.
Yeah.
Nimble Larcenist fits that same role. It can do the exact same thing. You know, so that moment where it's like, oh, as long as I get to my wrath, as long as I get to my depopulate, I'm gonna be fine. It's like, no, you're not gonna be fine. And with the Elite Spellbinder, you still have attacks on it. You can still play it again later. Nimble Arsonist? No, that sucker's gone forever. It's just, yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Straight to the exile zone.
Get it out of here.
I still want to see a card printed that can deal with the foretell zone.
That would be nice.
I think just I would like a nimble narcissist would like this. That would be really cool if it was like look in a player's hand and also in the foretell zone exile card. That would be dope.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be cool.
So our next card here, another uncommon. This is actually Hearsay's pick. We got Riveters Charm. Black, red, green, instant. You get to choose one. Target opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value among creatures or planeswalkers they control. Exile the top 3 cards of your library until your next end step. You may play those cards. Exile target player's library. So you get to choose one of these modes. Essentially, there's a charm for each family. These are all fantastic, I think. How do we feel about them?
Dude,
how do we feel about this card specifically? This is the best
specifically,
one, right?
This is the best charm. I think, in my opinion, I think it's the best charm. I know that the Obscura one, right, is a divination.
The brokers. The brokers.
The brokers one is the divination one. Okay, that like falls in the second place. But like this is insane. Like to say like so. This what really cool about this card is that it says on like the second mode of it is exile the top 3 cards from your library until your next turn. You may play those cards. You can do that on the end of your opponent's turn, and it's essentially draw 4 on your turn. Like, John just gets to see so many cards now. I mean, the first mode, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest mana value. We already have that. That's Soul Shatter. We already got that. And now we have another mode with exile target player's graveyard, which is sweet because that's at instant speed. So when we have these friggin' Orzhov decks that's like using their graveyard. Even like decks like Lear using the graveyard, we can just say get rid of that graveyard. Sure, you go ahead and have Lear out. Cool, get rid of your graveyard. You weren't doing anything. But that mode, that C3 cards you can play to your next turn, like it's like it kind of feels like it's like Kiki-Jiki's sorcery or Kiki-Jiki's like instant speed, right? Like because you get with Kiki-Jiki, you get to have the creature until your next end step. So it's the same thing. That's the same thing as what you do you would copy your creature at the end of their turn, so that you get to keep it for your whole turn and be able to do like shenanigans, blah 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 blah. This is the same thing, but you're gonna get more cards, and it's in Jund, guys. It's in Jund.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when like I of course consume MTG content. I'm sure we all do. It's part of the deal. And as I've listened to other content creators, other kind of people who considering the charms, it's funny because everybody's like debating on whether or not like what's better, the Bant Charm, the Broker Charm, the Obscura Charm, what are all these? But everybody seems to like the debate seems to be over what is second place.
Yeah,
Everyone agrees. Like Riveters is the best, right? Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah,
like there isn't even a debate. It's the best one. Period. Like It's fantastic. Like, and
it's an uncommon. It's an uncommon.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, Soul Shatter's worth the price of admission already. Like that card's great. Just boom, that right off the rip. And to your point, yeah, if you don't need a Soul Shatter, like you're going up against a control player or their board is empty and you just need to just see more cards because maybe you're down to 2 or 3 because it's later in kind of an attrition grindy matchup. Yeah, seeing 3 cards, that's a big darn deal. And as somebody who loves his graveyard, that third mode makes me very sad because this is a main deckable card that we are going to be seeing in competitive decks that just incidentally can blow up a graveyard.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, when that mode is relevant, it is exactly what you need. But it's only going to be relevant in a small percentage of your matches, at least in standard. So, but the effect is going to be along for the ride in the main. So it's going to be there. So when it's relevant, my goodness, that's going to be huge.
When it's good, it's good.
Yeah, when it's good, it's good. Even when it's not good, it's still fucking good.
Yeah, this card's really good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's
this card slaps.
Essentially, it's expressive iteration and or Escape to the Wilds. If anybody remembers Escape to the Wilds, imagine casting Escape to the Wilds at instant speed. You're like, oh, end step for 3 mana. I'll just cast this card, draw. Put an additional 3 cards to the side over here. draw my fresh card as well, and we're off to the races, right? Like, this card is gonna. This is like into the story, like,
Right.
like you
Yeah,
know, it's pretty
that's how I
nuts.
see it.
Like,
This is like it's Jun's into the story. Like this card is so good. It provides
uh,
so much card advantage. It's insane. Like sure, you're exiling cards, but like you get to see 4 cards because you see 3 and then you draw your card
yeah, you keep
for
one no
turn.
matter what. So you keep your card for
Right?
the turn no matter what. But like, you get to put those 3 freshies over on the side. Like that's nice. Like
You can hit a land
oh,
drop off of it, and then it's essentially like draw 3, play 3. Like you can play. You're gonna be able to play those 3 cards.
early in the game, I think most of the time you're going to use it as a removal spell or to hit a land drop and maybe like your 4-drop or something like that. But
Yeah,
I
I
think
definitely don't see this being played on turn 3.
mhm,
Like this is a card that's being played on like
6.
turn like 5, 6,
Yeah.
7. Like this is like this the Riveters Charm is the mid-range card. It is the bread and butter. It's what you want to be doing. Oh man, the card's a house. It's my favorite uncommon of the set.
Yeah, card's just so strong.
It's
Yeah,
a house.
that's fair.
It's a house.
That's a good
yeah.
pick.
And
Yeah.
like it's gonna be so good. Like how like and it's such a good top deck. You top deck that and you're like, I'm good. I'm good now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, because you top deck it, you got 3 mana up, you either blow up whatever huge threat your opponent throws down without even worrying about it, or you draw 3 cards for your next turn. Crazy.
All right, our next card here, we our last uncommon, Hamhock's pick. We have Tainan Indulgence, a blue and a black for an instant. Draw 2, then discard a card unless there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard. Yeah, man, this card. Yeah.
It's very straightforward. It does what it does, and it does it really well.
Oh yeah.
So drawing 2 cards and then being able to discard in the early game, I mean, that is a feature, not a bug. Like there are a lot of decks where you want to be discarding specific cards. I mean, imagine in Historic, we have like things like Mizzix Mastery, pulling out all kinds of crazy shenanigans like Dragonstorm out of the graveyard. Like, it allows you to tee up those kinds of shenanigans. You can also dump Reanimator threats in there very comfortably.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I
Of
feel like
course.
this is standards Faithless Looting with
Mhm.
1 more mana.
100%.
Like the fact, like, what was it? We had this discussion. I think it was you and Brian had the discussion last stream of what is the difference between looting and cycling. I think that was you two, right?
I think that might have been.
Oh no, it was Ziggy. It was
yeah,
Ziggy.
Yeah.
Looting and
Looting versus rummaging.
rummaging. That's right.
Mhm.
This is a looting ability because you get to draw first. I cannot tell people how much more important drawing first before you have to discard is so much more valuable before like I have to discard. I have to figure out something to discard. So like we have like Thrill of Discovery, which is you can discard up to 2 cards and you get to draw that many cards. But sometimes you get to discard 2 cards. If you discard 2 cards, you gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. This being able to draw and then you get to choose and then get rid of is huge.
Yeah. No, it's massive. And in the early game, you're going to be discarding cards, and that could be a card with flashback. That could be a Memory Deluge. That could be a Diagraph Rebirth if you're in a Reanimator deck. It could be the Reanimator threat. We're going to be talking about, like, this set actually has a couple of really big Reanimator threats, one of which
It
you're
could
going
be
to
the
be talking about
underdog.
later today.
The underdog.
Yeah. You could discard the underdog, exactly, and then you could blitz it back to draw more cards later. Like, you can do some crazy things with your graveyard right now. And if it's later in the game and you're in a deck that has a good curve, you might actually be able to meet that 5 or more mana values.
This might just be just a draw 2.
Might just draw 2 for 2 at instant speed. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, the first time I read this, like I was like, wow, this card is this is the real deal, right? I was like, this is almost like the...
realistically, what we were saying last time, like realistically, you're gonna have a land, a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop. It's having that 4-drop is the hard part.
Well, and it's easy to look at this and think of it as similar to like a strategic planning style effect, where you look at a certain number of cards, pick one, it goes into your hand, and then the rest go to the graveyard or go to the bottom. That is not how this works. You're drawing 2 cards, putting them into your hand, and then you discard whatever you want that's in your hand. So if you have a great Reanimator target just chilling in your hand, right off, in your starting 7, Tainan Indulgence gets it into your yard. That's exactly what you want to be doing with it. And it gets it there at the end of your opponent's turn. If you've got a high-speed Reanimator spell, like a, Assemble from Parts in Historic or Alchemy, something like that, like this tees that up so perfectly. It's not even funny.
Yeah,
And
this
it's
is gonna
just
be
so
good, and
efficient.
like this is so good in historic. Like
Oh my
historic
goodness,
reanimator,
yes.
it's so good.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's gonna get off the rails pretty fast. Yeah.
Oh
I wish
yeah.
it was like then discard a card like that stipulation, but I wish it was like a May.
That would be so good. Yeah,
Like
draw 2
so
cards, you
like
may
it's
discard a card.
That'd be way
yeah,
too
so I
good.
mean
That'd be way
That'd be
too
way too
good.
good. But yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be sick.
like no like no, I mean like so you still have the discard ability until you have the 5 permanents.
Oh,
Like
okay.
when you have the 5 values and it says you may discard.
Oh, so that way you can still choose to later if you want to actually do it.
Yeah,
Whereas you're
yeah.
right, in
That's
the
an
certain
interesting
type
idea.
of strategy, it actually kind of gets a tiny bit worse, right? Where maybe you want to throw something in the graveyard and
Yeah,
get that extra
exactly.
value, but I mean, drawing 2 cards, I guess, either way, drawing 2 cards, but
I mean, draw
I think
cards is
that'd
what
be
you want to do.
really
You want to draw cards. Everyone wants to draw cards.
that'd be really
Absolutely.
interesting if that clause is on it because we don't normally see something like that. Usually it's
Yeah.
either you do the payoff or you don't type of scenario.
Yeah.
All right, so that goes ahead and wraps up our top commons and uncommons. So be on the lookout for these in your next constructed events after Streets of New Capenna drops here on Arena in real life as well. You've already seen these cards, so we're going to go ahead and jump to our top 10 here. Our first card we have is a spicy one.
It
This
has the
is-
number 10 slot.
in the number 10. So we have Agnes, the Dragon's Lash. That's 1 colorless, black-red hybrid, red mana, red-green hybrid for a legendary creature, Viashino Warrior. It's a 3/3 with haste. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, you create a tapped treasure token. So, yeah, this card really strong.
This card is gas. This card is
Mhm.
gas.
Oh, yeah.
It's a legendary creature. I don't like so. The reason why I love this card is because I'm a big fan of a card that got released in a couple of the sets ago, Bard class. If anyone knows me or knows my stream, they know that I'm a big fan of Bard class. And this slots right in. It's a legendary creature. If you level up Bard class, this is going to cost you 1 in a hybrid, like 1 in a hybrid via red or black. Say you level up Bard class again, this costs you 1 mana. And then we have cards like Invigorating Spring,
Invigorating Hot
Hot
Springs, yeah.
Yep.
Which so Bard class already gives when even if you don't level up, any legendary creature that comes in the field gets a counter. Invigorating Hot Springs says anything that's modified has haste. So those two go hand in hand, and now all your legends are going to come in with haste. Say you have this creature out, now you're going to attack, and all your creatures are going to create a treasure.
That's the
Yeah,
best
that's
part.
strong.
It says whenever a creature you control attacks.
Creature.
It does not say
Mhm.
whenever 1 or more creatures you control attacks. So you get a treasure for every single one of those attacking creatures. That is bonkers.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and like there's so many haste creatures, and like where this is essentially it can be mono red as well because it's 1 hybrid red, and hybrid red. This can go in mono red. How many haste creatures do we have in mono red? All of them.
Fair amount of them, yeah.
There we have like what's the werewolf human that the 3-drop
Stormseeker, yeah.
Yep, you got Stormseeker,
Hey.
you got Rabbit Battery.
You got rabbit battery. Even like say,
Face's cock and that
Kumanos,
flips
yeah.
really easy.
Kumanos, yeah. Let's go.
Like, you
say
got
you
some
wanna
options.
say you want to do Gruel, right? That fits in there, and now you have partners, and partners gives counters and haste. Like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness! Like this card is even at the number 10 slot, folks. This card is crazy.
Yeah, this card is actually really strong. I see it being played in
Mhm.
Historic as well, where like I was thinking Historic or the new format Explorer potentially, where you have more access to even better haste creatures, like
Yeah.
a Robber of the Rich, and Explorer, like eventually you have like a Swiftspear or something like that. So yeah, you can kind of see how all those cards are like really powerful by themselves. Well, imagine you just have all those cards down, you curve out into Agnes, all of a sudden you're making 4 treasures. Even if your opponent, let's say, board wipes or, kill some of your cards, you're still going to have a ton of mana to be able to play a bunch of spells next turn, including like an Ember Cleave
a ton of
or
mana.
like your Bone
Ember Cleave,
Crushers, things like that.
Riveters Charm, like the list,
Yeah.
like you run Rivers Charm, like you're already ramping out Rivers Charm. All right, now I'm gonna cast my spells. Like it
Mhm.
just card is just so bonkers. Like Man, this card's good. Man, this card is good. I mean, it's not like this is like early Goldspan. Like this into Goldspan is just nuts.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this in the
Because
Goldspan does some crazy
it's
stuff.
on curve, right? It's on curve.
Mhm.
It has haste. So you cast this. Next turn, you're casting your Goldspan. Next turn, you get to make 2 treasures, and then all your treasures tap for 2. Like, I can't wait to play this card.
Yeah, this card's sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
legit.
this card's awesome. Agnes, the Dragon's Lash, number 10. Our next card here, number 9, we have Zeratora, the Incinerator. 3 colorless. Zeratora, the
This card makes me
Incinerator.
happy. I can't help it. Yeah.
Yeah, this card's awesome. 3 colorless, black, red, green, legendary creature, demon, dragon, 6/6 flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Zeratora, the Incinerator deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. So, man, why does this card make treasures? This card already is like nuts. Right?
Why is it? Yeah,
Like, this card's
why
already
is this
like
doing so
pretty
much?
strong.
Why?
Well, it's funny because this is the family head or the guild leader or whatever we're calling them of the Riveters. So this is the demon mob boss of the Riveter family. And in looking at the various Riveter cards, it's pretty clear. I mean, the marquee ability of the family is Blitz. The whole idea of blitzing a creature in is you pay it for cheap. You literally just throw it at your opponent and then it dies. And then you draw a card. Like, it's literally throwing the thing at your opponent. Riveter's Ascendancy also helps you recur stuff out of the graveyard. So the goal, and Zeratora just exemplifies this, clearly what the Riveters are doing is throwing people at a problem. That is just what they do. They just make creatures and just whip them at whatever's in their way. Which, being the hardworking kind of union members of New Capenna, kind of makes sense because, like, well, we need to get this project done. We'll get more people in it. We get more manpower.
Throw some bodies at it.
Yep, throw some bodies at it. And Zeratora literally throws bodies at stuff. Like, that's exactly what it does here, and I love it. Like, you got a big permanent lying around? Well, chuck your 5-drop at it. It won't last long. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's and then you get treasures back so you can cast more stuff. It's crazy.
And you're I know you're living the Junji and that sushi life.
100%.
I know you want it. I know you want it.
Of course. Oh, I want it so badly. I can taste it. You don't even know, man.
Sushi's pretty crazy because when it dies, you can create 3 treasures. So you make 6 treasures with Zeratora because you get 3 plus a 3 from Matsushi. So I was like,
Ooh.
And you deal 4 damage to anything you want. Yeah.
These aren't tapped.
And
they come in untapped too. That's the big thing.
That's bonkers, yo. And if you have Riveters Charm, you can get a 3-drop out of your graveyard too. Or not Charm, the Ascendancy.
Mm.
You get a 3-drop out of the graveyard. Like, the synergies with that is insane. But yeah, so Junji and Sushi, all of a sudden those like tee up. And if you're running birthing pot style effects like Vivian or Pyre of Heroes, you can actually turn a 5-drop dragon into Zeratora. And so you can sacrifice Junji to go grab Zeratora out of your library and put her onto the battlefield, and then throw whatever else you got lying around at your opponent. Like, I think this card's gas. It's gonna be fun to ramp into. It's gonna be fun to reanimate. It's gonna be fun to do that like birthing pot style shenanigans, which we have access to. Like, and just to top it all off, it's a 6/6 flyer. No big deal. Let's just throw that out there too. Like, and with it being a dragon, you can even use synergies like Orb of Dragonkind to ramp into it. Like, I think this card is like, a lot of people are on the bandwagon that this card is going to be great in Commander, which it will be. This is going to be a fun Commander to build for sure. But I think this is strong enough to make it in Standard. I don't know about Historic necessarily, but like, I feel like you have better 6-drops and better like Reanimator threats and that kind of thing. But in Standard, I think this card could slap. I can't wait to give it a shot.
I think it's an Alchemy card too. I think that Alchemy Dragons really wants this card where you can play cards like Emberstorm Predator. And you just keep growing Emberstorm Predator to like however big you want, and then all of a sudden you sack the Predator, you deal them. You pretty much can one-shot people with this card. This card is just fling. So essentially, like, if you get your creep, like the Star Mount, the Dragon, if you get any of these cards big enough, and then you're like, all right, go to my end step, you're dead.
Well, and it's
like,
a fling for free,
you know.
So with Inferno Star Mount's a great example. You can pump all the red mana that you have into buffing its power, so that 6/6 can very comfortably become a 9/6 or a 10/6. attack because it has haste, and then Zeratora just flings it. You don't have to have any mana open.
Yeah.
It's just
By
the
the,
fling
and
just
by the way,
happens.
it has haste. So let me hit you for 6.
Let me
Then
punch you with this.
let me throw you this at you for another 6. So it's 12 damage already.
And treasures.
And with my 3, and I got the 3 treasures that I'm going to use to cast my Riveters Charm next turn. Like it's so good. Yeah,
I think
Zeratora is great.
Yeah, it's a solid 2 of, I think, in constructed. I'm not gonna lie, like I actually think that like it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think adding those 3 treasure tokens, so like realistically, let's say that most of the time you get 1 sacrifice out of this, usually right on average. Sure. Okay, so you get 1 sacrifice, well you get some damage, so you get the damage value. You get the value off of putting that card back into the graveyard if you have some synergy like that, and you get mana from the treasures. So you're getting 3 things no matter what if this card dies. And if it doesn't die, then the game's probably going to end very quickly because it is 6/6, like you said.
And
like,
I just can't wait to like just big. Like brewing around it. Like even like cards like what's that 4 color, like not 4 colors. It's a colorless artifact that copies triggers.
Oh, the Lithoform engine.
The Lithoform engine.
That could be pretty gross. Yeah.
That could be pretty gross.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah.
So yeah, Zeratora coming in at number 9. Powerful card. You're going to see it definitely in Commander, but we believe ourselves that you're going to see it in Constructed Magic, possibly a 2 of, in a Riveteer style deck. So our next card here is actually very strong on stats.
This card's a banger as well.
Oh yeah, so we have Reservoir Kraken, 2 colorless, 2 blue, 6/6 Kraken with trample and ward 2 at the beginning of each combat. If this card is untapped, any opponent may tap an untapped creature they control. If they do, you tap this and you make a 1/1 blue fish creature token with this creature can't be blocked. There's no, this card has no downside. Even if your opponents tap it, like you make a card that's unblockable. So we talked about this during our actual set review where it's like, well, let's say they have to do that 3 times. Now you have, I don't know, 3 unblockable cards.
Yeah,
and then they still have to deal with this card every turn. Like
it's a 4 mana 6/6. Even if you can't, it's in blue. Even if you can't swing with it, you're gonna get blocked. You're gonna get either blockers or unattackable, like or things that can't be blocked. Like this card is bonkers. Like, did it really need Ward 2, folks? By the way, we're at the number 7 slot. This is the number 7 for our top 10.
This is our number 7 here. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a 4 mana 6/6 trample.
Or excuse me, number 8. Sorry, this is our number 8. Sorry, folks.
Oh yeah,
this is our number 8. Very, very sorry about that.
Number 7 because we have Agnes, Zeratora, and then this one, right?
Yep. Yeah, this is our number 8.
Yeah. No, it's number 8 because Agnes was 10, Zeratora was 9, and this is 8. Yep.
Oh yes.
It's all good.
No math.
All right, either way, but this card is still really strong. Like 4 mana 6/6 tramples, no joke. The Ward 2 protects it no matter what.
Did it really need it? Did it really need Ward 2? Like, did it really need Ward 2? Come on.
Yeah, and there are so many ways to get around that tap clause, and I'm very confident in how this can function because if you use cards like Spinner's Web, that is a really lousy combat trick from I think Midnight Hunt. It can untap a creature at instant speed.
Yeah.
Also, there's another card in this set. It's a rare that can untap a creature at instant speed in Halo Fountain.
Oh, say it again. What's that card? Halo Fountain. You ever heard of that?
Halo Fountain.
Get out of Christmas land.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Get out of the bathwater.
Here's the thing. The moment you have Halo Fountain in play with Reservoir Kraken, all you need is 1 white mana in the untapped Halo Fountain, and you present your opponent with a choice. You are going to have a 6/6 Trampler swinging at your face, or you allow me to create 2 1/1s, one of which is unblockable, and then you're going to have a 6/6 Trampler swinging at your face.
Exactly.
I love it. I think that's going to be so sweet. Like, I can't wait to use that. Also, in Arena, unless they change the way priority is held, you will need to go into full control mode to make that work.
Yes, 100%. You have to go into full control.
You do need to go into full control mode. That is very important. So that's something to be aware of. And the reason that I know you can do this,
you don't want to go skip through phases.
That'd be bad.
And in combat, folks, there are phases in combat that people don't really actually pay attention to. So like that's why you need to be in full control. You'll notice that like Arena will just skip by it, but if you're actually in full control, you can do these things.
So yeah, unless they change the way priority stacks out, that is going to be very important. I had a deck using Gitrog, Horror of Zava in Alchemy that was doing that kind of shenanigans, and there were some times when it just skipped past it because I wasn't in full control mode, and that bites because you don't get max value. So that's just something to be aware of. Yeah.
So yeah, listen. I'm saying you're going to see this card. Our first two cards are powerful cards. But they're on the line. This card is not on the line. This is a card that you're definitely going to see, I think. It's just, on rate, the card's strong, and the abilities that he has are even stronger. So definitely expect to see it.
You're gonna see this in like those goddamn Simic decks. Like that, I think that's where you're gonna see this, where it ramps out, and then here you go. Here's a 6/6. So just like, oh man, this card's so good.
Well, there's actually gonna be a green card that we talk about later in this list that combos with Reservoir Kraken to beautiful effect. So let's just put a pin in that. Yeah.
But yeah, number 8, Reservoir Kraken. You're gonna see this card constructed in some form or capacity. It's just a powerful card overall. And our next card here. So listen, you're probably thinking, didn't we see the uncommons already? Well, this uncommon is a little strong, you could say. So we have a little chat, a colorless and a blue instant, casualty 1. As you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature at power 1 or greater. When you do, you copy this spell. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library. This is the next Deadly Dispute.
Yeah,
this digs you 4 cards deep.
Strong.
Yeah, it digs you 4 cards deep, gets you 2 cards into your hand if you're able to sacrifice Shambling Gas, Eye Twitch, just any of these random creatures you got laying around for that are 1 power or greater. Like, you just get so much value. My main thing about this card is that you don't need any artifacts or creatures to sacrifice. Now, Deadly Dispute, you do get the cards. You do get 2 cards no matter what, so, that's understandable. But at the same time, if you don't have anything out to sacrifice for it, or if you have, like, a really good creature you don't want to sacrifice, then you're not really getting any value of it, and it's kind of just like sitting there until your opponent tries to kill it. Well, with Little Chat, instead, you can actually just go digging 2 cards deep to get a card that you actually want to get to kind of keep you going. And I think that those are all types of things that kind of like make this card strong overall.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like, just there's so many 1-drops that you just want to die. You kind of just like play them out just to be there, like Shambling Gas and like Twitch. Like, they're just like random blockers that do something. And the fact that like in a Demirless, this card gets you 3 cards, because if you have Twitch, the Eye Twitch, you can sacrifice the Eye Twitch, you're going to look at 4 cards, you're going to draw 2 basically, and then you're going to tutor out of your goddamn sideboard and get a card out of your fucking from the learn package. So it's like it's so much value for 1 card. You're getting 3.
Yeah, no, that's bonkers. Yeah, Little Chat is fantastic. And the fact that, I mean, Deadly Dispute is a busted common that has, like, defined formats. I wouldn't say it has warped them, but, like, it is a linchpin in a number of decks that we've seen, that in sacrifice decks or, like, Orzhov mid-range style shenanigans. Like, that Deadly Dispute is so clutch. And the fact that we're comparing Little Chat to that so readily, like the moment you look at it, it's just, oh, it's Blue Deadly Dispute. It's a little different. It functions, it's got some flexibility that doesn't have, but it also doesn't give you the treasure token. So, okay. I think the fact that it digs 4 and you get to select 2, not necessarily like 2 of the 4, but 2 then 2, that's a big deal. Like,
it's
4 cards.
It's huge. It's
huge. Looking at 4
really
cards.
Big.
Like Deadly Dispute.
Oh my goodness.
You could draw 2 lands. You could draw 2 lands. You're like, fuck.
Now I just wasted that. Right now I sacked something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where little chat, you can be like, oh, here's
take the land now, and then let's go take another peek at the next 2 cards to see if we hit something else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think this card is amazing.
Yeah, this card is just solid.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those that you see a lot of that people aren't going to just like Deadly Dispute. Like, I don't think anyone is calling for Deadly Dispute to be banned, but you see it everywhere. It's one of those cards where you're putting a cast, it's like, oh, okay, that's happening now. And
the drawback, I think, is what really makes these cards not as crazy is the fact that, like, Little Chat by itself is actually just fine. It's not like a crazy card that you would actually see in Constructed Magic, but the fact that you're able to sacrifice, get some value out of that sacrifice, dig even deeper into your deck, these are all things that you already want to be doing in that type of deck, and I just think this card's solid. Like, the first time that we all saw this card, we were like, yeah, this card. Like, I was like, yeah, this card. Like, let's go.
Yeah,
like,
this card's good, right?
Yeah,
totally.
It's just Deadly Dispute.
And
like,
another
all
thing
it
that
is.
makes this card, the other thing that I do want to call out with this and any casualty cards, the moment you activate the casualty trigger on this, and you get that copy on the stack, if your opponent, like, if you cast out if you tap out for a Deadly Dispute, your opponent can Spell Pierce it, and you're out. If you tap out for Little Chat and your opponent's sitting on one Spell Pierce, it's not going to do the job. They can hit one of them, and so you'll be denied one of the draws, but not the other one. So you're still not drawing blank. You still get something. And so if you're going up against a control player, that's a really bad situation. Like, they need to be able to counter both. Which, to be fair, there is a card in this set called Make Disappear that theoretically can do that if they have something to sacrifice. But that's what they need. It's kind of like the Flusterstorm, if you will, of this set, but that, or the Whirlwind Denial, if you will. Like, but you need that. You need to be able to hit multiple spells on the stack. That's not easy to do. So
not in Standard.
No, not in Standard. It's very difficult to do in Standard. Yeah.
This card is super strong in Constructed Magic. You're definitely going to be able to see it in all kinds of decks. If anything, this card is actually going to make a new kind of strategy in Constructed Magic where you're actually going to be able to see more of the blue-black sacrifice type decks kind of take over more. So, be on the lookout for this. Number 7, Little Chat. All right, let's move on to our next card here. We have Shakedown Heavy. This is 2 colorless and a black for a 6/4 with Menace. It's an Ogre Warrior. Whenever this card attacks, defending player may have you draw a card. If they do, you untap this card and remove it from combat. So this is kind of like a Kraken type effect as well. Original like Desecrator Demon type style. What do we think about Shakedown Heavy? I mean, the stats on it are kind of insane, right? It's 3 mana for 6/4 with Menace. Like, it's pretty good. And the fact that your opponent has to give you a card if they don't want it to attack, right? Like,
yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like, it gives you a card. It's like, I'm getting in for 6, or you can give me a card. You choose. And you have to sacrifice 2 creatures. Not sacrifice, but you know what I mean? Like, it's basically like give up 2 creatures because it has Menace and it's a 6/4 body. Most times that's going to trade with 2 creatures.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love this card. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And you're absolutely right. The Menace is very relevant because it makes that attack, it makes the conundrum that your opponent is in much more difficult. Because even if they have one big creature on the board that theoretically could tangle with the Shakedown Heavy, something else needs to jump in the fight too. And so that's a really interesting situation that it puts them in. Also, the idea of, a thug going to just rough somebody up to get some value, like the idea of like, I'm gonna smack you around unless you give me a card, like, it just fits.
Shake them down.
Shake them down, exactly. I love that.
Give me my cards.
And
just give me a card.
Really, really relevant here. That the 4 but. It avoids like cards like Dragonfire for the not Dragonfire because you can have it does 3 damage.
But Strangle, like, this thing can't be Strangled.
A Braid, Strangle. What other 3 damage spells are there? Like like
Dragon's Fire is still in.
That 4 toughness is very relevant.
Big time.
And I mean, you're not gonna strangle an Ogre Warrior like.
Yeah, no.
And another thing about this card, and like this is kind of like, it's not that it's off or whatever, but what is up with everything shakedowning devils? Like, that's a devil in the artwork. Why are devils getting the shit end of the stick in every piece of artwork?
They really are. It's true.
They're just everywhere. They're everywhere on the plane, right? They're like regular humans. So like, instead of it being a human getting shaken down by the ogre, it's actually just the devil getting shaken down. Or maybe they're also like addicted to Halo. Who knows? Shh.
Oh, it could be.
They don't have a Halo problem.
But yeah, so this card it's cool in a lot of different ways. I mean, having 6 power on the board is meaningful. There's a lot of things you can do with that, including in this set that aren't even combat related. But to be honest, when I first looked at this card, I'm like, it's a 6 power creature that, like, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it literally cannot close the game for you. Because if you have lethal on board where you're attacking somebody You got a clean attack with this. They have 6 life left. They're like, yeah, no, you draw that card. Have fun.
Yeah.
And you know, so when I looked at that, it's like it's a 6-power creature that can't close the game out for me. How much do I really want this? Then I realized, for 3 mana, this is a Phyrexian Arena that can block. Like, okay, that's rad. I'm here for it. Give me an additional card every turn. That's great. And it's funny, I've talked to people who actually opened this at the pre-release, and they were like, "Yeah, I drew like 5 cards off it. The thing never connected. It was great."
Yeah, it's like even it doesn't even do any damage. Like, you're drawing cards now. It's not a legendary, guys. Imagine having 1, 2, 3, 4 of these out.
Oh,
Imagine just copying this. Like you get to have this.
Into Kraken. Let's go.
Let's go.
12 power, turn 3, turn 4. You're just like, oh, by the way, I guess I'm either drawing cards or making unblockable creatures. Or doing both. Hey, I just have these crazy creature enchantments out that could connect for 6. Like,
I love that, because your opponent sees the swamp and the island, and they're like, okay, there must be some form of control. It's like, wait, aggro? Yeah. What's happening?
What is this, Dimir?
Dimir aggro. Let's go.
Format anymore.
I'm here for it. Let's make this happen.
Or Esper Beatdown, right? Obscura Beatdown.
100%.
Who knows? Maybe like you add in some white in there too, and all of a sudden, like, your Luminarch Aspirant's like, hey, I'm gonna keep buffing it. You gotta stop it. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden your Shakedown Heavy's like a 10 whatever, and your opponent's just like, how do I deal with this card right now? Like, do I just have them keep drawing cards? Because the thing is that, like, either you're gonna lose to the 6/4, or your opponent's gonna, like, you're gonna drown your opponent out in cards, right? Like, you're just gonna be like, oh, by the way, I still have 7 cards in hand every turn. It's just 7 cards, 7 cards, 7 cards, and before you know, you're just like, I can't. I should have killed that 6/4 a long time ago, or should have blocked it or dealt with it before, like, you know, letting them draw 4 or 5 cards.
This set is, like, literally everything is a goddamn threat. Like, every card that is played needs to be removed. It needs to be countered. It needs, like, everything needs an answer. So either, like, and we know that Esper control is going to be a thing when Capenna comes out in 2 days from me right now.
Yep.
We know that that's going to be a deck. But are they going to have every answer to literally every card that's coming out? Like, I don't know.
It's going to be tough to keep up. Yeah.
It's going to be tough to keep removing threats nonstop. Like, that was the whole purpose of why mono green and mono white are so powerful, is like every turn they're putting down a card that is like, I need to get rid of this, or I need a board wipe, or I need this gone. I need to get, like, you know, it's just so much advantage.
Yeah. This card's just huge. Like, that 3 toughness really, or excuse me, the 4 toughness really makes a big difference, where the Strangle, like you said, only deals 3 damage. You have all these cards that are supposed to be efficient removal spells, but against Shakedown Heavy, they actually don't do much unless you actually have the hard removal, like the Vanishing Verse, which Vanishing Verse gets worse, so a card like this has more room to kind of, like, stay around, right? Stick on the battlefield. You need, like, a Grasp to kill it, but a Grasp makes you cost life. So then at that point, you're killing the heavy, you're letting them draw cards, and then you're taking life. Like, that just seems really bad, right? Like, I expect this card as well to definitely, you know, we're starting to hit this is going to be in constructed level of our top 10 cards, and Shakedown Heavy, like, on rate, 3 mana 6/4, like, yeah, there's no downside to this card.
You're going to even see this. You're going to see this card in control.
Yes.
Like, you're gonna see this in control, being like, I get it. Like, I'm just gonna protect the shakedown, and I get to draw cards every time I swing.
Yeah, and because in that role, it almost fits the same position as, like, the Maze Mind Tome or the Bankbuster. You know, it's that cheap thing that's just gonna draw you a bunch of cards throughout the course of the game,
and
your
then later
opponent,
on, like, get crushed for 6. Like,
exactly, Well, because, you know, the idea, I mean, the way that, like, it's insane that the way to deal with this card is take 6 damage to the face. That's insane, and I love it.
Yeah, and it's like, it gets around, because it's menace. It gets around these shitty derpy decks that just put out chump blockers. It's like, oh, I get a chump block. Like, yeah, oh, well, this has menace. So do you have 2 chump blocks? Shit. Can you make 2 creatures a turn to block as 6/4?
Yeah, that's a tall order right there.
Yeah,
this card's scary in conjunction with Meehook, because it's going to survive most of your Meehooks until turn 6, and even after turn 6, you can just be like, oh, I'm just going to Meehook for 3, and then leave your 1 card out, and then go to combat, try to attack you with my Menace card, and then If I get to
get
draw
to
a
draw a
card, then
card.
it's like what, a 5-for-1, right? You're just
Yeah.
like,
Right.
it's absurd. Plus the life gain, plus the life off the me hook. Like there's so much. Like this card is in the perfect color, right? Like this card feels very black. It's like draw cards, or I get like this big beefy thread. It's like such a greedy card, but like
Yeah.
it's really powerful. Like the value.
Take this damage or give me a card.
Yeah, take this damage or give me a card. Like the value for this card is like spot on. You guys are right. Like the flavor for this card is like spot on. Like this card is a great representation of the set, where
Yeah.
it's got the name, it's got the artwork, it's got the flavor. On top of that, it's like a really strong card for being a monocolor card, because we have to remember in this set a lot more of our powerful cards are going to be multicolor cards. So the fact that we see a card like this and some of the other cards in this top 10 be monocolor cards, like that's huge. Like that speaks to the strength of where some of the monocolor cards are in this set.
Honestly though, like out of like talking with the set and like it being a crime theme, I really like they missed their opportunity. Why didn't we get a Cranko in this set? We got Cranko, the 10-ship Kingpin?
Oh,
Cranko,
yeah.
Mob Boss. Where the hell is Cranko in this set?
He's on Ravnica. He's not a planeswalker. That's the only reason, I think.
What? All right, Wizards.
Yeah, sorry.
Trying to give Cranko a spark.
I wouldn't be mad at that. Yeah, that could be fun.
All right,
Yeah.
so our number 6 card there, Shakedown Heavy, fantastic card. You're definitely going to see that in Constructed Magic. Our next card, we're actually hitting our top 5 here.
Top 5. I love this card.
Oh yeah, this card's great. So in our top 5 here, our first card, we have Fight Rigging, 2 colorless and a green enchantment. It has Hideaway 5. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. At the beginning of your combat, put a plus and pulsar counter on a creature you control. Then if you control a creature power 7 or greater, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. Yeah, this card.
This card is nuts. And for folks at home watching this video, me and Ham, don't worry, we did our due diligence, and we turned Hollywood onto this card.
Indeed. When we were first doing our spoiler videos, yeah, when we first pulled this up, Hollywood was like, I don't know, you gotta do some hoops, and yeah, and Hearsay and I were just like, no, this is legit. It's yeah.
I was like, it's a little slow,
card
right? 3 mana. I was like, maybe 3 mana is a little slow, but I think that the effect on it, like, so you can just go Shakedown Heavy into this, and then the game could potentially end for your opponent.
Or this into Reservoir Kraken. Either way, you're golden. Yeah.
Oh yeah, ooh baby, now we're talking.
Right? Yeah, let's say
right?
This card is nuts. And
so
like,
good.
you get the dig 5 deep, and you get the caster for free. It's already a Luminarch Aspirant on the card itself, so it's already going to give one of your creatures a counter at the beginning of its upkeep, or beginning of combat, which is so sick. And then the power of 7 is fine. Like that's nothing. Like even guys, remember we have runes enchantments in our standard right now.
That's right.
This with the Jukai Naturalist makes it cheaper. And how easy is it for one creature to get the 7 power in runes?
Oh, yeah. No, that's
like
Caster Scalds for free, right? Let me get my Scalds real quick. Like, yeah, like this card fits into so many different decks. It's kind of weird. Like at the beginning, I wasn't really sure because I was like, oh, maybe it just takes like a lot. But the fact is that like some of these mid-range creatures that we've been talking about are massive, and the fact that this gives you incremental value as long as you have a creature out, like. We talked about like most of the commons and uncommons. I mean, you just have a Jewel Thief out, and all of a sudden, Jewel Thief has Vigilance and Tremble, and then it's a 6/6. Now it's a 7/7, and you're casting something for free, right? Like all these cards kind of like snowball, like.
Nuts. And now let's think of historic when we have like cards like Llanowar Elves. You can go turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 this, and then turn 3 Reggie, and then say you have a fucking a Valky underneath this card. And now you just get a turn 3 Planeswalker, like Valky Planeswalker, on turn 3 because you played Reggie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those kinds of lines, like that sounds like it's a Magical Christmas Land kind of scenario, but with how many amazing 7-drops or 8-drops even there are in some of those older formats. And I mean, even in standard now, we've got some amazing like 6-7 drops that you'd be more than happy to hit off this. And there are treasure generators that can go down as quickly as turn 1. I mean, you could theoretically be starting this off like even. I mean, the ideal situation is you hit a 6 power something on turn 3, and then drop fight rigging the next turn, or you play fight rigging on 3 into like a reservoir. If you play a Reservoir Kraken on 4 after a fight rigging on 3, it becomes a 7/7 right away, and you get the hideaway trigger.
Mhm.
Like, if you've hit away even a Zeratora, like we were looking at earlier on this list, that's a free 6-drop that can now fling your 7/7 Reservoir Kraken straight at your opponent's face and create treasure tokens. I mean, it's not hard to put together these insane scenarios.
Yeah, this card is absolutely insane. Like, you're gonna see this. I feel like you're gonna see it in Golgari. You're gonna see it in freaking Sultai. Like, imagine like having these cards and like putting like a coma underneath the fight rigging, and then getting a coma at the beginning, like at the beginning of your upkeep. You're just like, all right, yeah.
Turn 4, you're just like, oh, coma, by the way.
No, and it's turn 3, guys. Turn 3. That's gonna happen because you have turn 1 Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, if you Llanowar Elf into a big card, yeah.
Right? Turn 2 into a Reggie. Turn
Ulamog,
3,
man.
rigging.
You didn't even care. You're just like, oh, by the way, turn 2 Regisaur, turn 3 fight rigging into Ulamog. Get rid of your lands. GG.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I guess.
That's it.
Obviously, we're in Christmas land, but you know,
this is play. This is play. It's not cast, so I don't think you get the cast triggers off of Ulamog.
Let me see. You may look at top 5 cards.
No, you're playing.
You may play. It's casting. It's you get the triggers.
If it's a spell, it counts as casting. If it's a land, it doesn't. I believe is how that works.
Yeah, you still get the triggers.
So you
play
still
it,
would get the cast triggers. How bonkers is that?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, this card is nuts, and this is also part of a cycle. Every color has a hideaway card in them, and I think it's fair to say. I mean, check me if you guys think I'm wrong. Fight rigging is head and shoulders, without question, better than the rest of them.
This is the head and shoulders. This is head and shoulders. Fight rigging is the creme de la creme. Like, this is your McCain deep dish cake that you're gonna like just. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, because you look at ones like wiretapping, which is the blue one, which I think is easily the worst in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
It costs 5. You get to draw an additional card each turn, which, okay, we've seen how good that effect can be, but you know, in black you get that in 3, so why would you pay 5 for it? And then if you have like 9 cards in your hand, you get to hit the hideaway thing. It's like, okay, like it's just kind of meh. And then the cemetery tampering, which is the black one, it's also an enchantment that costs 3 that can mill you for 3 cards each turn. Okay, I like filling my graveyard. That's a meaningful effect. Similar to how fight rigging makes your stuff bigger. Okay, great. However, for that one to trigger the hideaway, you need 20 cards in your graveyard. Like, that number compared to 7 power in green, like, I feel like to make that equivalent, they should have made it like, I don't know, 12 cards in your graveyard. Yeah. Or make fight rigging like 9 power. You know, like, I feel like that's how you'd make to even those out.
Yeah, it's just like
it's just so much easier to trigger.
I just don't think like they were thinking, but they're like, oh, 7 power, that's pretty hard, right? And they're like, yeah, that's pretty hard. So what about a 4-drop Kraken that's a 6/6 that has Ward 2 and it's trample on curve?
It's on curve. Like, how crazy is that?
You guys are yeah, that's fine, right? Yeah.
Or the Shakedown Heavy, you're like, oh, how about a 3-mana 6/4 with Menace? No drawback. Only drawback is if your opponent doesn't want to get hit by it, you have to draw a card. Congrats.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, fight rigging.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
You guys definitely turned me around on fight rigging really quick. I think the combination of those big cards too help, where it's like, wow, you're right. You know, we do have a Love Struck Beast in the format. You know, like fight rigging is going to be able to go off pretty quick. You know, like I think what's crazy about this card is you can set it up so that you never get blown out by it really being destroyed. Because as long as you get to play it on, like, let's say you can just hold on to it, play it when you need to, get that creature to 7, then get the cast your card for free in the same turn. I think that's what we're going to see a lot with fight rigging. We're going to be sitting there and be like, oh, I hope they don't just go off. And then it's like, oh, they play it. Oh, they go to combat. I don't have a removal spell. And the Kraken is like embarrassingly like, oh, it's so brutal. It's just like, oh, by the way, to target this, you need Ward too. So you need to pay 2 more mana. So like,
yeah. And they need creatures on board in order to tap down the Kraken to begin with.
Yeah,
so
that's
if
true
you
too.
Don't have creatures, then you're just going to come in with a trample 6/6 Ward 2. Like, go fuck yourself.
It's stupid. This is going to get ridiculous, and I love it.
I honestly think this is going to be my, like, right now, where Standard's at right now is the healthiest Standard's ever been. And I think this is going to be my favorite Standard meta, like, to play in a long time and for the future to come, because this is just like, these cards are insane. They pair well with cards we've already printed, and like we said, Hollywood, like, this is a back-to-back set. Like, Kamigawa was a 10 out of 10, and now they're coming out with Capenna being also another 10 out of 10. Like, and that's just our opinion, but I mean, like, when has Wizards ever come out with 2 banger sets back to back? It's usually like, here's a fluff set, here's a power set, here's like a filler set, and here's like we're gonna round it all out kind of thing. It's never like banger, banger, hello playlist, banger.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because yeah, it's like call time, banger. Okay, sweet. This is great. Now here comes Strixhaven. Oh, great. Like, okay, thanks. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
like
yeah,
Midnight Hunt, you're like, okay,
all right. There's some cool stuff here, I guess. All right,
there's some
thanks.
decent stuff, and then like and then Crimson Vow rounded it all out. You're like, okay, sweet.
No,
all right.
exactly. Like it tied it together. Like, okay, this is something I can work with. And yeah, and then you're right. Kamigawa did a great job of adding some really key pieces to the meta and shook things up to a point where we were in a very aggro versus control meta where mid-range was just like, hey guys, can I party too? And it's like, no, get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here with your mid-range plans. We're like, well, all we need is Elrons and Divide Band, and we can play.
And then all of a sudden, yeah, mid-range is back in the picture, and a lot of cards from these last couple of sets have kind of come together to make a lot of those decks that we're seeing. And you're right that, I mean, in Kamigawa, we got Wandering Emperor, we got Kaito, we got, a couple other key pieces that made a lot of those archetypes viable. And I think we're going to see that here. I think we're going to see, like, looking at Capenna, there are so many cards where, like, this is incredibly powerful, but what deck do we have that it goes in?
Yeah.
And as a result, I look at all that and I think, well, we're looking at a situation, we're looking at a set that is going to create new decks to compete in this meta. And that excites the hell out of me.
I love
can't
seeing
wait.
new cards, and I like seeing like new combos, and just like, oh man, these cards are so good. They're so good, and they're not even like some of them are like sneaky good.
Oh yeah,
right. Like this, like you can look at a card and go, yeah, that card's a banger. Like little chat, you're like, yes, this card is good. Omnifus, yes, that card is good. But it's like fight rigging, shakedown, the reservoir. Zeratora, like the cards that we've already gone through over our list, like these cards are like sneaky good. Like, yes, they are big mana cards, but they're sneaky good. Like, they're just good cards.
Definitely, yeah. I'm glad, really happy with how the sets come out. The flavor and the power of the cards has definitely come together to create what we hope is going to be a continued fantastic standard format and alchemy format, historic, etc. So, I mean, definitely see what kind of impact Capenna has, but, fight rigging, we can tell you fight rigging is going to be there, coming in at number 5, so definitely be on the lookout for that card. Our next card is actually a powerful, powerful effect, and it does something new that we actually haven't seen before in Magic. So we have Luxior Giada's Gift. It's a colorless, legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. You can equip a planeswalker for colorless or equip a regular creature for 3 colorless. So, yeah, this card makes your planeswalkers into creatures. It makes cool. Oh yeah, it makes the cards that already have counters, like, I don't know, shield counters, a vigilance counter, good old-fashioned +1/+1 counter. It keeps growing, keeps getting bigger. This card just feels mythic. Yeah, I mean,
this
a lot of rules are going to come out for it, but this card definitely feels mythic. Like, this is it right here.
I love this. Yeah, I love this card, and well, I think what is really cool, a really cool interaction with this card. It opens it up to a weakness, but it's really strong. You can have a planeswalker, equipped it becomes a creature, and now your planeswalker can no longer be attacked into. It like protects your planeswalker from being able to be destroyed. Now it opens up to creature removal and like just target removal or like trades and blah, 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 what have you. But you can still use those loyalty abilities without worrying about someone attacking your planeswalker and putting those things down. So like imagine like being like, this makes your being able to alt a planeswalker way more easier, because now it's a creature that you can swing with, and it's another, like, you can activate that ability, that loyalty ability, which is just, it's so insane to me. It's so insane. And then like we got like combos in older formats. Like, what is Devoted Druid legal in?
That's a good question.
Right?
Yeah, is it modern? I think it might be modern.
It's legal in modern, yeah.
Yeah.
So this in modern with Devoted Druid just means you have infinite mana.
Yep.
And that's not even leveraging the the crazy Planeswalker ability. That's just a good card.
That's
Combined with
yeah,
a good
that's
card.
just a
That's
combo.
a good card,
Yeah.
a really good card, and you have infinite green mana. Because Devoted Druid says remove a counter. No, put a +1, put a -1/-1 counter on it, and untap it,
Yep.
and it taps for a green.
Yep.
So with this balances out because it's gonna get +1/+1 for every counter, so it's never gonna die. You can just and you have infinite green.
Yeah, pretty fantastic.
Yeah, this card just seems powerful.
Yeah, the thing that I love about this card is, I mean, this card is so good that it changed my mind on a completely other card in the set. Like, if you go back to our first spoiler video, we talked about Elspeth Resplendent, and I remember, we were kind of down on that card. At least I certainly was, because I thought for 5 mana you just don't get enough. Like, +1, you get to put a couple counters on something. All right, what good is that? But then the moment I saw Luxior out, it's like, oh, wait a minute. So if I equip Luxior on Elspeth, all of a sudden she can just give herself +4/+4 and a relevant keyword every turn.
Yeah, that seems
Holy
pretty
crap.
strong, right?
Like, that's incredible. And that's just scratching the surface. This card, by animating, we've seen other cards that can turn Planeswalkers into creatures, like Sarkhan, I believe it was not Masterless, it was Sarkhan from War of the Spark, that could turn all your Planeswalkers into dragons until the end of turn.
Yeah.
That could do some dumb stuff where people were like mutating on top of their Planeswalkers and creating like weird, bizarre shenanigans that makes you just kind of go, what? Like, why in the world would you do that? And like, because the Planeswalker was a creature temporarily. This puts the Planeswalker into that creature state indefinitely. So there's so many insane, weird things that you have to be able to do with that, because we talk about it opening up Planeswalkers to target and removal, but all of a sudden you can protect it with Snakeskin Veil, or which could theoretically only target creatures, or Heroic Intervention can now say, well, that's actually all permanent, so that's a bad example, but like anything that can target a creature. There are so many effects throughout the history of Magic that were designed to target creatures that were never designed to target Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
And the fact that this opens all of that up, I cannot wait to see what people in Commander come up with this. Like what weird, insane combos from, cards that are 10 years old that nobody's remembered, that all of a sudden, the moment you put it on a Planeswalker, it does something insane. Like, I have no doubt that there is just a smorgasbord of those effects out there waiting to be found.
Yeah, let me give you a card that everyone's forgotten about.
Oh, hit me. Yeah.
Ozolith.
Hell yes.
Ozolith gets every counter that's been lost, and then you can put it on a creature at the beginning. I think at the beginning of your upkeep, right? You put it on something.
I think it's combat. Every combat, you move all the counters from Ozolith onto a creature.
So, like, literally every counter you've ever had is on Ozolith, and then you can transfer it over to a Planeswalker that's already a creature, and then now it's, like, insane.
Yeah, so if you had a 5 loyalty Planeswalker that somebody hit with an Infernal Grasp, all those loyalty counters go onto the Ozolith. And then you equip another Planeswalker with Luxior, you can put all those loyalty counters onto it.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, that's beautiful. Or if you wanted, for any reason, you could put all those loyalty counters on like a Raging Goblin, if you wanted to. That's an option. I'm just saying. Anyway.
But yeah, Luxior is definitely going to change the way rules work for Planeswalkers and
there are going to be so many moments where it's like, excuse me, Judge? Like, what is this? What do we do here? Like,
yeah.
That's
not looking forward for the judges on this card.
Right? It's going to be rough. Yeah.
But yeah, Luxior, number 4 on our list here. Really powerful card. You're probably going to see it in all kinds of formats. You're going to see it on your kitchen countertop. You're going to see it in tournaments. It seems like a very pushed card and kind of just like a strong card overall, where you don't just need a Planeswalker. I mean, like I said, you put this on a card that has 2 counters on, and all of a sudden you're swinging for an additional 2 points of damage. So, I mean, card's just good. Yeah, it does add up. You know, just got this card laying around, and you get some value for it. So, expect to see it soon. Our next card here. So, we're hitting our top 3. So, essentially, this is our individual top of 3 cards pretty much here. So coming in at number 3, we have Rafine, Scheming Seer. A white, a blue, and a black legendary creature, Sphinx Demon. It has flying and ward 1. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is a number of attacking creatures. So this isn't just like whenever this card attacks, it's whenever something attacks. So let's say you're in Obscura, an Esper tempo type of deck. you can essentially curve out 1-drop, 2-drop, and then play Rafine. And before you know it, one of your cards is getting 2 counters from you just being able to connive. You're getting deeper to the cards that you want to see. And if you have any kind of graveyard synergies, you're putting cards in your graveyard that you're able to use later. On top of that, it's got a big butt, it flies, and it has semi-protection with the ward 1. So no matter what, if you want to kill this, essentially it's going to tax you, which can make it kind of difficult on, let's say, like an aggressive opponent that doesn't necessarily want to just tap out for a turn to kill this card, but they know that they can't get through that 1/4 butt. And on top of that, I mean, if let's say you're just playing this like a controlled mid-range deck where you don't have a curve like that, just attacking by itself, it's going to continually grow if you're discarding non-land cards, and on top of that, you're just digging deeper just by itself. So I think this card is just really powerful. I expect this card to give me nightmares plenty of times throughout its history in standard alchemy. I don't know, that butt, just the butt and the ward makes me upset.
I honestly, like, I can hear you smiling in my ear, just like you reading the card. I know you love this card so much.
I love this card. This card's so good. It's so powerful. Like, it does a lot. It really does a lot, and it's only 3 mana. Like, that's the thing, is like, it's not even 4. Like, we talk about a lot of the powerful cards that can kind of start to turn the game, like snowball the game in your favor, and I feel like for 3 mana, like, yeah, this card just gets really strong and starts to punch people pretty quick.
Yeah, I think Connive is incredibly powerful.
Connive is super strong.
Yeah, Connive is the real deal. It helps you like manipulate your hand. It helps you manipulate your graveyard. It buffs your team. I mean, it's phenomenal. And the fact that Rafine is Connive X, that's nuts.
I'm definitely happy that it's in the Esper colors or Obscura colors versus like it being in any color. Because if this was in like Sultai,
oh my goodness,
this would be fucking busted.
Yeah, no, insane. Exactly. Well, I think what we're gonna see is a lot of decks that are leveraging really powerful white creatures on 1 and 2 into Rafine on 3, and being able to get multiple Connives even as quickly as turn 3. I think that's gonna happen, and that's gonna be nuts. In more of a controlling deck or more of a tempo deck, like we're saying, you could throw a turn 1 Eye Twitch. Like, we talk about how great Eye Twitch is to sacrifice, and that's true, it is. But it also has flying. And so if Eye Twitch is conniving, all of a sudden it not only is a flying beat, like, it becomes a flying beat stick.
I'm just picturing an Eye Twitch conniving.
Yeah, that little twitch. Yeah, it's got those twitchy eyes. They've got plans. I know it. Yeah, but think about it. You can throw Eye Twitch on 1. On turn 2, you can hold up a counter spell or a kill spell, or things like Little Chat or Deadly Dispute if your opponent tries to deal with your Eye Twitch. And then on turn 3, to jam Rafine, swing with the Eye Twitch. You connive. It can become a 2/2 and put something relevant in your graveyard. I mean, and you just have Rafine just there making a statement. I mean, that's, and then next turn, if you swing with both, assuming that they survive, which, I don't know, maybe not. There's a lot of great removal out there. But if both Rafine and the Eye Twitch survive, you swing again, you get to draw 2 more cards. If you discard non-lands, they buff up again, and all of a sudden you're hitting for 5 damage? No, is that right? Yeah, because the Eye Twitch would be a 3/3 at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, that's the perfect situation, but it's not impossible.
We know that it happened with rogues. I mean, rogues would always go 1-drop, 2-drop creature into, whatever, 3-drop, double creature, something like that. I mean, the thing is like, we talked about Little Chat before, where your opponents are going to start wasting removal on some of these creatures that don't really seem that powerful.
But
and
this don't mean anything. Like, they just, it's like, they're like, whatever. Yeah. And then it's like, oh shit, wait a minute.
Yeah, all of a sudden
Spikefield Hazard is gonna have a heyday. With picking off all the little 1/1s. Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna be around.
Yeah, if you go Eye Twitch into one of the cards that's in this set, the Shredder. So if you go Eye Twitch into Shredder, let's say they're just looking at it and they're like, oh, 1 power. Oh, Eye Twitch, yeah, I can't really kill that because they'll get value. And then you go Rafine, and then all of a sudden now your Shredder is like a 3/5. Or your Eye Twitch is like a 3/3, and your opponent's like, oh, wait, what? Wait, I didn't. Now I have to kill their cards, and on top of that, they're getting value from them, right? And Rafine, too, like I said, that has the Ward 1. Even just having Ward 1 is so huge. Just taxing for that extra mana means that, like, you're almost taking a whole turn away from your opponent. Like, we've seen that with plenty of cards that have Ward with that extra mana attached to it. I mean, even Trespasser doesn't even cost mana. We've seen how much of a problem discarding an extra card is to Ward. I mean, just having that extra bonus in there really helps. And I don't know, I just feel like it's on curve. It's got a really big butt, and you can pretty much play this card in any type of style of deck, it almost really does want more creatures. But even as just like a control card, like I said, you don't care. You can keep growing it every turn and just keep blocking or smashing in, like either way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the big butt and the connive X are very relevant because it means that it's almost impossible. Not, I mean, never say never, never say impossible, but like hitting Rafine with an early Meat Hook Massacre is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like that's just not an option. I mean, late in the game when you have all the mana in the world, maybe, but like
Turn
if,
7.
That four
Like-
toughness, I'm telling you, that 4 toughness is the truth for any creature. If it has 4 toughness, it's pretty hard to get rid of, being like via burn damage or Meat Hook, because that being 4, you need 6 mana. You need 6 mana in order to -4 something.
That's
And
assuming
that's-
it has. Yeah,
it
and
hasn't
if it
connived yet.
connives before
Yeah.
you get to that 6, it's gonna be even harder.
Exactly, and like I can definitely see like Rafine, like I want to say like Rafine like stacks or something like that. Like, you know, like imagine like running Thalia, and then Dahlia is going to be able to connive, and it's a first strike attacker.
Ooh, there you go.
And then
That's-
like
yep.
you can connive with Redain, and like you just start taxing. Everyone's like, "You're right. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to tax you, and I'm going to just kill you with these creatures because you can't remove me."
Yeah, you can't get rid of them.
100%. That's definitely going to be a thing. Like, why wouldn't it be? That's insane.
Yeah, this just fits into mid range, like you guys are saying with Meat Hook. Like, you attack with this once, and essentially, like you can Meat Hook for whatever up to 5 and not care. If you get this up to 6, like you can pretty much Meat Hook almost anything out of existence at that point, and then you're still left with a card that's able to just keep swinging. Like, I don't know. I think we're gonna see it. I know that for a lot of the cards in our top 10 and in this set, there isn't really like a deck for it yet. But I feel like with enough of these powerful cards, you're going to start to see all kinds of different like decks that you wouldn't actually have seen before. And the fact that we have more color fixing helps a lot too.
We have early access there tomorrow. So we are going to see the Hive Mind hit the ground running. Like, we are going to see some friggin' decks.
Oh, yeah. It's going to get saucy really fast. Yeah.
For sure. So definitely be on the lookout for this. This essentially is my pick, Rafine. So definitely be on the lookout for it in any kind of Obscura / Esper deck, or even in maybe there's a 4-color deck that we haven't seen with Kiki-Jiki. So let's just keep an eye out for that.
When in doubt, add Kiki-Jiki, yeah.
Yeah, Kiki-Jiki it out. All right, so our next card here, number 2 on the list, we have another mythic, another big hitter here. This is Hammer's Hammer, pretty much. Titan of Industry. Hammer's Hammer.
Oh, I'm going to be hammering some people with this one, no question. Oh, yeah, it's happening.
I think this card just it's a dream.
Stupid.
So,
this card is insane.
Titan of Industry, 4 colorless, triple green, 7/7 elemental, reach, trample. When it enters a battlefield, you choose 2. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Target player gains 5 life. Create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token, or put a shield counter on a creature you control. I'm being real specific with my words here because the first thing about this card is it has 2 abilities, reach, trample, which are good in green, right? Then you're able to destroy artifact or enchantment, which is pretty much any like type of permanent that gives you problem. You gain life, you make a 4/4 Rhino on a shield counter, and you get to choose 2. It's not one that hasn't been chosen, Ham.
You know, I'm not. 2. That is one of those things. It doesn't say you may choose the same mode more than once, which I know some other cards that have that do
it's
say
always
that.
like you can only choose one that hasn't been chosen, or choose one that was it choose one that hasn't been chosen, or what's the other one? Only choose...
you may choose. Yeah, like
choose one that hasn't been chosen yet.
Yeah,
but there are like. Or there are cards that say you may choose the same mode more than once. Like, and so a lot of the times they do clarify. So I'm not sure on this one if you can choose the same mode more than once, but you better believe I'm going to test it. Yeah, I'm going to find out. Because to be honest, whether or not it works that way, even if I have to pick 2 different modes, I'm fine with that. Like, we still get phenomenal value. You know, so... You know, being able to put 11 power on the board and gain 5 life, or destroy a pesky permanent that my opponent has, or just putting a shield counter on Titan of Industry, that, you know, it can protect itself.
Yeah, this card is nuts. So I've actually I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days, Ham, because I know you love this card.
I do.
And I'm like, it's not that I don't like the card, and it's not that I like the card. I'm kind of like, I'm on that fence about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great card, but then I had to read the card again, and it says to put a shield counter on it, and then my mind exploded because having a counter on it makes it modified, which
Yep.
makes invigorating hot springs gives it haste. So you can potentially have, like, we're talking about our Magic Christmas Land here, right?
Totally.
And
Let's go there.
We can fight rigging this, have this under fight rigging, and then this can come out, and then we give it a counter, and then say we give it a counter, and then we give it put a 4/4 on the field. Say we have Hot Springs out, we give a counter to the 4/4. It's now a 5/5. So now we have a 7/7 haste and a 5/5 haste swinging in. Whew.
Out of nowhere.
Out
It's
of nowhere,
beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, little things like that. I mean, this is what you want to be tucking under fight rigging. You know, all those crazy things all those crazy curves we were looking at with fight rigging. If you can get Titan of Industry under that, oh my goodness, that is going to be just absolutely devastating for your opponent. This is great in like Simic ramp decks as well. Any deck where you want to be ramping up, this is a great target to hit at the end. Any situation where you're going to be reanimating this, like, right away without a doubt. And I was a little bit hesitant to make this statement. You guys kind of like posed some questions that kind of led me to this. I feel like Titan of Industry may be the single strongest reanimator target in Standard, like, as soon as it drops.
Yeah, it just does much.
It does so much.
If you can pick the same mode twice, that's 15 power off one spell.
It's incredible. Like, absolutely incredible. And add this with Teleportation Circle. Add in Kiki Jiki into the Gruul modified deck that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting what you can do with this. In a reanimator situation, you can have situations where you can sacrifice this and bring it back. You're like, I mean, the sky's the limit with this thing. Once it's enabled, once it's a relevant player on the battlefield, your opponent is gonna cry. It just does so much. And realistically, for how much value it puts out, costing 7 isn't that much.
Yeah, it actually isn't that much in today's Standard, right? Like, you got treasures lying around,
I think the only cost they make it like kind of like a lot is that it's 3 green and 4. It's not like it's not just, you know, there are some like you need green. Like, this is a very much a green card. You need green in order to cast it, but you can fucking cheat this motherfucker out real easy.
Oh yeah. Not hard.
Even in alchemy, we have assemble from parts. So for 3 mana, it becomes a 4/4, but a 4/4 that you get to blow up something or gain 10 life or put 8 more power in the field. This card is it is insane.
And the great part about Assemble from Parts is when you use the activated ability to it's an activated ability to pull the creature out of your graveyard, so it's very difficult to counter. But additionally, it shuffles back into your library. So if you're self-milling in one way or another, if you're using old stick fingers or cemetery tampering, like I mentioned earlier, or any of these mill strategies, if you're using Assemble from Parts and you mill that same card back into your graveyard, it perpetually has that ability. You can pay 3 and just reanimate it again. It's insane. I know I've done that in a couple of decks, and it feels great every time you pull that off. So a Titan of Industry is going to be a player in all of those. The one huge knock on this in the current meta, if Titan of Industry is a player in the meta, if there are decks that are trying to cheat this out, if there are decks that are trying to ramp up into this that make it into competitive play, Vanishing Verse shuts this thing down pretty hard. You still get the enter the battlefield value, but that 7/7 reach trampling body is a big deal. And you definitely want to keep it around.
Exiling is not destroy. So,
even the shield counter doesn't help.
But I'm telling you, I think that we're going to see less Vanishing Verse. I predict to be more into a sideboard card because of the fact that you're going to see a lot more of these multi-card cards show up. So therefore, Vanishing Verse can't deal with everything, right? There's already multi-card cards from Kamigawa, and then now you add even more with this, and before you know it, it's like, well, it's going to be a lot harder to exile specific things. So I think same thing that I mentioned about with Heavy, where both of these monocolor cards have a lot more room to breathe. Now that more multicolor cards are coming in, because it makes Vanishing Verse a lot worse. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So yeah, if Vanishing Verse is around, Titan of Industry becomes significantly worse. But if it's not, Let's jam. This thing is
Yeah.
gonna get insane. Yeah.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
wait.
All right, so that was our number 2 card, Titan of Industry, a big green mean killing machine. Expect to see this card in standard and potentially even some other formats where you're actually able to reanimate it and kind of get it all out earlier, and it's just a lot of power on the board. But our next card.
Do you think it might like surpass Primeval Titan for modern?
Nah, prime time is just too good. Getting
Yeah.
the 2 lands, getting the
Bold
2
question,
lands
but
is
yeah.
just it's Valakut. It's just
Yeah.
getting Valakut just ending the game on the spot's absurd.
Fun
But
thought.
Titan
Yeah.
is still a strong card. I think Titan's still like it feels very mythic, right? It's a very mythic card
Mhm.
for sure.
No question.
But yeah, number 2, Titan of Industry. Our next card though is definitely some straight gasoline.
The king is here. The king is
the
here.
king is
The
here.
king is here. I thank you. I thank you.
So we have Ob Nixilis, the adversary, a colorless of black and a red. Legendary Planeswalker Nixilis comes in with 3 loyalty. It has casualty X. The copy isn't legendary and has starting loyalty X. So when you cast it, you can sacrifice a creature with power X or greater. When you do copy this spell, it becomes a token. +1, each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. -2, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Yeah, I mean, not really much to really kind of hit on more than what we've already talked about.
Man,
This card,
this card
it's
is
3
nuts.
mana. You get a Planeswalker. Essentially, this card's going to slide right into any kind of red-black sacrifice deck. The +1 is a value ability that helps grind your opponent down on cards or life. The -2 helps protect the other copy that you may want to be able to keep out as well, or protect the copy that's going to get attacked. And the -7 is either a game winner, because you can just target your opponent, just deal them the last 7, or it's a game winner on your side where you're just going to draw 7 cards. I mean, that doesn't seem bad in these mid-rangey mirror matches where everyone's pretty much at 20 life. I mean, drawing 7 for 7 life seems great, right?
This card is absolutely insane. I can't speak highly enough about this card. I think Wizards made a mistake. I mean, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, they heard me say that I wanted something powerful. They printed something too powerful. This card is nuts, guys.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
nuts. It's nuts. It's
Mhm.
nuts. I know that like this has been drilled in everyone's minds. Like you know this card's nuts, but there's just so many combos with this card. Like, so like we've already had this chat. I don't want to like sound like a broken record because like this card's nuts, and I think it's. I know. I said in my opinion, and I know you guys don't think so. But in my opinion, I think this card, and I can't wait to hear people say in the comments, I think this card is more broken than Oko. I think this card is way more powerful than Oko because Oko is just one walker. It's just one walker that you have to deal with. Yes, it sucks getting your shit turned into Elks and getting advantage and blah, 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 blah. Ob Nixilis is 2. Like on turn 3, you have to deal with 2 planeswalkers. That's just the minimum because you can sack a shit creature, even if it's your 1-drop, like your Twitch. This is still coming in with 1 counter. That doesn't matter unless they have like burn to remove it or whatever have you. But like you still have to deal with 2 of them, and the +1 ability can kill you. Has there been like in my mind I can think of that a +1 can kill you. Because yes, you can choose to discard the card or you can choose to take 2 life. You're like, oh, okay, cool, I'll take 2 life. All right, cool, I'm at 18. And then you're like, oh, wait, you have another Planeswalker. Okay, I'm at 16. And then they go next turn and they do it again. And then this token, guys, this token can be copied. We have cards like Errant at 1 blue mana that says you can copy a spell that was not cast. So that means you can... So you pay 1 in a blue and tap it, but you use that and then you copy the trigger on Ob Nixilis. So in Grixis, now you're going to have 3 Ob Nixilis to deal with. And then in Jund, friggin' Chariot can copy the goddamn token because it's not legendary. And then it comes in with the same loyalty that Planeswalker came in with. That's how it's worded. And then there's cards like Lithoform Engine that for 2 mana you can copy that casualty trigger on the stack. Like, this is nuts. It's nuts.
It's a really strong card. I think it's definitely like the best card in the set. I think it makes a lot of the decks that already sacrifice even stronger. I myself wouldn't go so far as to say it's better than Oko, but I think that it coming into standard potentially makes it the best card in standard, just because it slides right into some of the best decks that already exist, like Red Black Sacrifice. Like essentially, Red Black Sacrifice is more of a deck in Alchemy than in standard, but with Ob Nixilis coming in, I feel like you're definitely going to see Rakdos Sacrifice spike all the way up to the top. And like Hearsay was saying, in terms of like the 3-color decks, the 3-color decks gain a lot from Ob Nixilis, where it's able to kind of play that attrition game with your opponents. Like a lot of the cards that we've seen on this list, and a lot of cards that are in standard, like Alchemy, seems like a Connoisseur, like Kiki-Jiki. And then in standard, you still have some of those cards as well, where essentially you have like cards like maybe like the Venture cards, things like that, where you're kind of like grinding your opponent out, like grinding them out of resources. And Ob Nixilis essentially is doing that, where by you getting 2 Planeswalkers, a lot of the time Planeswalkers are so problematic that like you have to waste a lot of cards to get rid of them. You have to attack them, you have to use your spells. Well, with Ob Nixilis, essentially you get 2 down, so therefore it's going to be twice as hard for your opponent to deal with it, considering that now they have 2 Planeswalkers that essentially like are going to keep either draining you or making you lose resources like your hand. And then on top of that, it's going to be in a deck that pings you for 1 here, pings you for 1 there. Oops, played a meat hook, guess you lost 4. You know, the thing is that all that damage adds up a lot quicker than you think. And I just think that this card definitely adds a lot more to those decks. And if anything, it's the card that pushes the sacrifice decks over the top, because you can play this in like a Mardu Sacrifice. Doesn't seem bad, right? You play your Eye Twitch into your Professor of Symbology, and then all of a sudden now you have 2 power to sacrifice for the Ob Nixilis, and you get to go learn. You get to go get a card out of your sideboard, so you actually don't even lose any real value off of that. So
like,
there's just 3 mana. Like 3 mana is really cheap, you know. Like that's the thing. 3 mana is really cheap.
It's really cheap, and and it has life gain, guys. It has life gain. Why?
We often forget about that part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's there.
gain, yeah.
Why does it say you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life? Like, that's just like, it's
Well,
like,
and if you
now
get
you're
the
like, oh.
if you get the casualty trigger, whichever one has the highest loyalty can create the devil, and the other one can uptake, and you get the life. Like, yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, minimal synergy, but it's there. Like,
This card is so, it's so good. Like, it's beyond good. And we can, like, and I brought this up there earlier, that you can bring up like Boomer Jund and think of like Lily of the Veil. Like, what's it, Lily of the Veil?
Lily Veil, yeah.
Lily of the Veil. Like, this has remnants of that, because like you discard a card, blah 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 blah, kind of thing, right? Like, this card is like on that power potential, but I feel like it does so much more, because you get that second Planeswalker. Like, 1 Planeswalker is hard to deal with on its own. Guys, how many spells have you used and creature have you tried to attack into to get rid of Lolth, and you still can't get rid of Lolth? Or Sorin? Like, you're using everything to get rid of that freaking card. Now imagine trying to have 2 of them on the field. Just that alone is just like 2, not 1, 2.
And we have some damage-based board wipes that can hit Planeswalkers, but not many.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be kind of your best bet. But even then, I mean, something like Burn Down the House is a 5-drop. So, getting to that point is going to be tricky.
And you're already, like, your opponent's already playing spells. They're going to play the lands. They're going to play their spells. They're going to want to do what they want to do. And then you're like, yeah, by the way, discard or lose 2 life. Discard or lose 2 life. And that's every turn. Every turn you have to decide, your opponent has to decide, do I want to lose 2 life here, or do I want to lose a card? I'll lose 2 life. Like, in the early game of this if you losing 2 life, you're gonna say it all day. Like, yeah, I'll lose 2, I'll lose 4, whatever. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. Now you're on like turn 5, and you're down to like 8 life, and you're like, I can't actually lose any more life. I'll have to lose the cards. So now you start getting up on card advantage in the late game. Like, this card, Omnis just does a lot. It just does a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Could you imagine throwing Ob Nixilis on 2 into Turgor's Lantern on 4? Oh. I mean, that is a huge middle finger to your opponent. Like, that's violent.
Let me just start getting rid of your entire hand. Like,
like all your resources. I mean, I'm going to take a resource from you, like a number of resources from you, every single turn. Whether it's your life, your cards, or your permanents, your call, but I'm hitting all of them.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, well, and like we mentioned with a little chat, the other crazy thing about Obnixilis is if your opponent holds up a counter spell, they might think, or one kill, like one piece of removal, oh, they might think, oh, I'm golden. But Obnixilis copies on the frickin' stack.
On the stack.
It's the little chat.
Stack.
It's casualty. It's the way casualty
Yeah.
works,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're gonna get that second spell no matter what. Like, your opponent could Jawari Disruption your Obnixilis on the draw, right? And you don't care because you still get the copy.
Okay.
And then now they have to deal with the Planeswalker, right? They still have to use another removal spell just to kill that. So
Yep, and they have one fewer card to discard to the +1. That is just gonna chew away. Yeah, it's great.
It's just nuts. This is why it's our #1 spot. But you guys already knew that. If you're watching this, you knew what the number one card was gonna be.
Right.
You knew. We won't play around with you. But man, this card is an absolute host. I think this is gonna be the bane of Standard. Man, this card in Historic is nuts.
Well, and on just this top 10 list, we had 2 creatures with 6 power that were dramatically cheap for what I mean, so we had Shakedown Heavy, we had Reservoir Kraken. Other cards in the set, like Tenacious Underdog, is a 3/2 for 2.
Yeah.
That's on curve with Bobby here. That's amazing. Like, and Skyclave Shade is another one that Hearsay, I know that in our conversations you've brought up before. Like, that's a great shout because it's a 3/1 for 2 that you can recur out of your graveyard.
Yep, it's just
and
great
that gives
food
you
for
a 3 loyal
Obnixilis.
tab. It's, I mean, it just
great food
feeds
for
off
Obnixilis. Like,
perfectly.
yeah, cool. I sacrificed this this 3/1. Now both of my Obnixilis come in with 3 loyalty. I'm gonna make a blocker for 1. I'm gonna make you discard, or you just say like you don't have any creatures on board, so why do I need to create a blocker? Take 4 life or discard 2 cards.
Yeah, and on
let's
turn
do it again next turn.
Yeah, and in a format like it's very possible that a lot of mid-range and control decks are going to be pretty slow getting off the ground because we have a lot of tap lands right now to fix mana. That's going to be really difficult to pull off. You know, we have the slow lands, we have the new triomes, the headquarters or whatever they're called. But the new tri-lands all come into play tapped. And so if you're on the play, like your control opponent's not countering Ob.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen. It's not likely anyway.
It does too much. Yeah. Like, not that it does too much. It does. Well, it does do too much, but it does a lot. And it's such a good card. It's such a good card. Yeah. I can't say anything more highly about this card. This card is nuts. We can stop talking about it. This card is going to absolutely be the bane of everyone's existence. It's just one of them is annoying. Having 2 of them, you're gonna be like, okay, all right, skip the scoop phase.
Yep. And we're gonna see such.
Yeah. It's definitely gonna be a player. Specifically, if anything, this card helps. I think that the 2-color decks definitely have an advantage over the decks that you guys talk about, like that comes into play tap land deck, mid-range decks, where, yeah, you get an anvil down and then you Obnixilis, do all these other things, and like all of a sudden, you know, your opponent's trying to stay in the game, right? They're trying to get whatever their card advantage engine's going, but like you've already assembled all your pieces and they're trying to keep up. Like, yeah, no doubt the most powerful effect of this card is 2 Planeswalkers, no doubt. Like, the fact that you have to waste so many resources on both of them is huge. And, like, we all know good cards come in pairs. I mean, if you get rid of both of the first ones, that 3rd and 4th Obnixilis is probably going to do you in because it's, like Hearsay said, like, how much life can you take? Like, yeah, you can take 4 here, 4 there, and then you're at 12. Well, my deck is also built around slowly draining you out of life. So you're right. Before you know it, you could be at 8. And then now you're staring down 2 of these Planeswalkers and you're having to discard cards in your hand just to stay alive and then make your opponent draw because they got a Shakedown Heavy in play.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot of situations where somebody like feels like, okay, I haven't quite stabilized, but next turn I may get there, and they look down at their life total. It's like, how am I at 7?
Yeah,
like you're going to have that moment a lot with this card.
Like especially in Historic, like you have cards like you have decks like Jund that already Jund Sacrifice that already exists where you're already getting pinged by the devil, the mayhem devil,
or the cat,
or the cat, like the cat, the devil, the squirrel, guys.
The meat hook. The meat hook just kills you.
1-drop.
Yeah, the squirrel, the meat hook, the blood artist, they're all there. It's
like this just makes the list so crazy.
Yeah, anything that sacrifice is definitely gonna want to play this card for sure. But Obnixilis, our #1 card in our top 10. Definitely be on the lookout for this card in every single format. We do appreciate you making it this far, actually. We appreciate you if you
Thanks for
watched our
watching.
set review.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
also on the channel. We have some tournaments as well. You're going to see some more tournament coverage here on the channel today around the same time, potentially, that this video comes out. But be on the lookout. We've got all kinds of great content. We got gameplay videos. We've got draft videos. We've got all kinds of MTG content here on the channel. So if you've enjoyed this video and you enjoy our content overall and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It definitely helps the channel grow. I'd appreciate if you also hit the like button on the video just to kind of help us a little bit with the algorithm, or even leave a comment. Maybe something to say about where we place some of the cards. But we do appreciate you hanging out with us here to the end. I'm Hollywoodpizza. We got HamHawks42 and HearSayTTV. All of our links are going to be in the description below. You can check out the PizzaBox's tournament schedule for May as well. And thanks again, everyone. You really make this so special. And as always, stay cheesy.